the Forged and Unbroken podcast.
I had a 1975 CB 750, and that thing was just like I had it like a little cafe racer style, man. Like it was fun. Like once I had my youngest, I think I sold it. I just couldn't keep up with it. Like I was always having to turn wrenches on it, you know. It wasn't like something that I could just get on, and I just kept it like around town, nothing long or whatever. But I had a blast. But I mean, there's so many books on it of just that. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. You experience things in such different ways. Like the whole thing is just
very, like, you know, now with the young daughter, it's like, back to that time commitment thing, right? Like I want to be there for her, especially because I know like it's not going to be a long-term thing, that she's going to be little, but you know, hopefully eventually I can start getting back into those little bit longer trips that I have been accustomed to, and kind of getting out and doing my thing. So I still have a hopes of doing the Trans-America Trail with a buddy one day, which takes about a month to do. So that'll be good. And then maybe someday, hopefully she gets into motorcycles, and that would be even better. So
is that the whole Americas one where you're going like down the whole coast down to the tip of South America?
No, that's Continental Divide. The Trans-America Trail is all mostly dirt roads, back roads from North Carolina coast, from the ocean, all the way to Oregon to the coast. And you go through like the Ozarks, you hit Colorado, Oklahoma, Utah, like the Salt Flats. So it's like you go through Moab, like through that area too. So it's like it's the longest way possible to get somewhere, but it's kind of the point of that, you know. It's like you're not really journey, not the destination type of thing. So so that should be pretty fun. So
you said that one takes a month to do?
About a month, yeah. I mean, I think there's records of people just crushing it, but like again, what's the that's not the point of it, you know. So and we're, you know, as you know, very fortunate with the fire service. Like you can work some trades, get some leave periods put together, and you know, bank up your leave and take a whole month off at a time, and it's not super detrimental to your family. I know a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to have that. They get there 2 weeks a year, and that's it. So, you know, we're very, very lucky, very, very fortunate for that schedule. So,
yeah, cool. One of my buddies, actually, one of the guys I work with, just bought a bike. He did motocross for many years, kind of got back into it. He doesn't have any kids, and he just did a section of it. I think he was out in where'd he pick it up? It was somewhere in Washington. He picked up his bike, but then did a whole section. He took like 2 weeks and was out west. It was amazing.
It's incredible. Yeah, I could text you next 2 hours about camping and how it is, and like mental health wise, and how it's been great for me. You know, it's like but yeah, no. So
I would love to dig in on that at some point. Switching gears a little bit, we'll kind of get into it. What were you always Maryland? Are you Maryland or are you elsewhere?
I was born in New Hampshire. My dad was in the military, and then when he got out, he did like contracting stuff, so we moved around a bunch. So I consider Jacksonville, Florida, my home. But I mean, we've lived in California, New England, Illinois, just a bunch of different places. So kind of bounced around a lot as a kid, which I think it was good because it helped me quickly make friends. You know, you could talk to people, and you know, I think kids can go either way. Young adults, where you're like, oh, I don't have any friends, and I can kind of isolate a little bit. But I was fortunate enough to be on the other side where I was like, no, man, let's be best buds. You know, so yeah, and then you know, it came time for me. I was 18 years old. I was living in Florida, and I wanted to be a firefighter because I just thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. Like most of us who get into the profession, you don't really understand it. You're just like, those guys are cool, you know? And it was 2008, 9-ish. And like, especially in Florida with the recession that was kind of happening, they were hiring a lot of guys on SAFER grants. And then as that SAFER grant started to taper off a little bit, they would terminate the position and then rehire from a guy that was already at a career department somewhere else in the state, because they would bounce around. So, and I was just some knucklehead kid with, you know, an EMT card and firefighter 1 and 2 cert. And I thought, you know, that was going to be all I needed. I didn't speak another language, had no military. So My father was in the military. He served during Vietnam. The tail end of Vietnam. My grandfather was in Korea in World War II in the military. My great grandfather. So like, I was like, all right, let me just do that. You know what I mean? Like that'll help me get those bonus points when I go for a fire department application. And it was going to be a quick 4 years in and out, and it turned into like 7 years, 8 months or something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was probably the best thing. Like, you know, like is it type 3 fun where you're like, when it's over with, you're like, all right, that was actually good. Like while you're in, you're like, this is terrible. So, yeah, so it was a little bit of that type 3 fun, right? I did have fun while I was in, obviously, but a lot of personal growth and maturity. Like I was not, I was a knucklehead. like plain and simple. Like I just didn't, you know, I had no forward thinking whatsoever to with anything. It was just like, oh, this looks cool, I'll do this, you know. And so, you know, I joined. I went through all my basic stuff. I was in the Navy. I was a corpsman, and so like that's the medical, like it's a medic, right? Corpsman job is pretty broad. You can do a lot of different things. You can be a physical therapist, you can be a lab tech, you can be a surgery technician, and then there's some that go with the Marines. And I probably just how I was built, you know. I was like, oh, that'll be cool. I want to go that route, you know. So I volunteered for that. And went through that training to go with the Marines, and that was in Camp Lejeune. I went down there, did a couple months down there to get like kind of spun up on like, this is how Marines work. Like this is how you shoot a gun. This is what we do, you know. And then after all that training, I went to a hospital back in Jacksonville, Florida, for maybe a year to get more clinical experience, essentially, is what their plan was at that time, so that you could, when you got with the Marines, you weren't just like this only trained person. You saw actual sick people in a hospital. So they're trying to provide a better quality to the Marine Corps of medical people. And so I did that for about a year, and that was good. And then I got sent to, again, I was like, oh, this would be cool. I'll volunteer, you know. I got sent to Hawaii, which was like being in Hawaii was great.
Yeah.
And it was with a Marine Corps infantry unit. So it was like, that was my dream, you know, that's what I wanted to do. And it was they don't tell you this when you go to Hawaii, but there's not enough space on the island for all the battalions. So one battalion has to be deployed at all times. So most infantry battalions do like an 18-month workup and then a 6-month deployment. We were doing 12-month workups and 6-month deployments. So that way we could be on the island, but then also Oahu is relatively small for like Marine military operations in general. So every training you had to do, you had to fly off island to either Southern California or to the big island of Hawaii. So you really weren't on island. I think I figured out one time, it was like right around 50% of my total time stationed in Hawaii, I was actually on the island of Oahu. So, but they were really great. As great as the Marine Corps could probably be. with if we were back on Oahu, it was like, all right, we're gonna work 5 a.m. We're gonna PT. We're gonna do what we need to do, and then 1, 2 o'clock, like we're done. We're done for the day. And so it was got to do a lot of hiking, a lot of swimming, and you know, I met my wife. Before I met my wife, I was going out in Waikiki a lot and doing the young man thing in Waikiki and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. And and then we did a couple deployments to Southeast Asia. It was mostly just training operations, training the local military forces and stuff like that, and kind of getting them spun up on how to do combat, essentially, right? Teaching them different tactics and techniques, and you know, being the corpsman, I was mostly responsible for helping train medical stuff, which was extremely difficult because it was like I was way in over my head as a 25-year-old with essentially an EMT card and some additional combat training, medical training on top of that. And I'm trying to guys about antibiotics, and I'm trying to teach them like prolonged field care, which is like really high level surgical stuff that I was taught, and I'm reading on my own, and I'm trying to like, this is just too much, dude, so it was really, the military puts you into extremely difficult positions very, very young age wise and career wise, and just by the nature of how they operate. And it was really good. I was listening to one of your podcasts with the guy who teaches for Johns Hopkins. It was a couple episodes ago.
Reisbeck.
Yeah. And he was talking about how like you mature as you have experiences in life, and you kind of go through those things, and like some of that stuff wasn't revealed to me until like recently, where it was like, a lot of thinking about and analyzing things that I had done previous, and being like, oh yeah, you know what, I could have done this better, right? And I think because I was young, I was looking at things in larger increments and not breaking it down so like to daily, like was I a good person today? Did I do what I needed to do today? And it's more like, oh, how was that deployment? Like that 6-month time frame, did I do what I needed to do in 6 months? And so I've really started now kind of breaking stuff down into shorter increments to stack on top of, just like working out, right? Like, am I doing my enough squats today at this weight so that someday I can hit this big goal that I have, And that was really really good. So that time period of my life was really, really informative, and like really helped me mature to be the person I am today. Like I don't like, my wife is great, she's like the best person I know, and I don't think if I had gone through those things, like she would have any interest in someone like me that I was. So
yeah, it takes a special kind of woman just to hang out with guys in our line of work anyway, I feel like.
Yeah.
Is that where you also met Jake?
Yeah. So that's the the guys in the fire department just love making that joke, right?
Right.
Because Jake and I, he was in E3, I think, and I was in E4, so I was in a leadership position, but I had no idea what I was doing, and I was in charge of him. And we ended up, we're in the same battalion, and then we got put into different companies, so just like a lower breakdown. And but we deployed twice together, and it was one of those people in the military, you just make friends like really, really quickly, that trauma bonding, right? You just get good friends really, really quickly. And I keep in contact with a lot of the guys still, and that's why social media is great. I think we have the advantage over previous generations because it's easier to just be like, oh, so-and-so had a kid, like, hey dog, congratulations, you hit him up, like, how's it going? Whereas previous generations in the military, like, you write letters, you go back to your homes and it's far across the country, you don't see these guys ever again. So for us, I think I'm very, very fortunate in that aspect. But so Jake, it was funny, we were on our second deployment. Jake was planning on getting out of the military, and Amanda and I had just gotten married, and I was like, well, this is it, I'm doing 20, I'm gonna retire, and that's gonna be it, and Jake was like, I'm not, which is cool. And he had a plan, and he wasn't married, so he could do his own thing. And he picked orders here to Bethesda, Maryland, to the Naval Hospital here. It's Walter Reed now. And because he's from Jersey, and he was going to try to go to school and be closer to home. And then we were in, where were we? Indonesia, maybe, training them. And so we didn't have any, normally you could go on a computer and you look at what's available and you can like bid on it, and they would kind of give you what you wanted. I didn't have a computer to do that. So I got on a satellite phone and I called the detailer, which I was fortunate I even had that opportunity. He's like, hey man, where do you want to go? And I was like, well, what's available? He's like, no. That's not what we're doing, right? Because I'd rather pick the least of, like, what are my options, and I'll pick. He's like, no, man, you just write 5 things down, or you give me 5 things, I'll write it down, and we'll see what we can do. And I was like, all right, I want to stay in Hawaii. I want to go to Italy. I want to go to Key West, Florida, and then Charleston, South Carolina. He's like, all right, I got you. And then a month later, my orders popped to Bethesda, Maryland, and I was like, I'm Googling where Bethesda is. where is that? Because all I knew was Baltimore. And I was, I got to Walter Reed, and it was a complete culture shock. This is right next to it's all the head of the military is seen there. It's very polished and proper and not like the dirty Marines sleeping outside in the rain that I was accustomed to and I fell in love with. So I'm like, I was just a fish out of water for the first couple of months. And I, again, like looking back on things, that is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I was in a meeting with the command master chief, and I had my EMT still. Corpsmen weren't required to keep their EMT cards, but I just kept mine because I was like, it cost me almost nothing, and I do training to keep the Con Ed up. So he's like, they were sending soldiers down. The command was a joint command, so they had soldiers and sailors, right? They were sending soldiers down to the Army's flight medic school, and they wanted to send sailors, but no sailors had their EMT card. And he's bringing this up at this meeting like it's a problem. And I was like, hey, Master Chief, I got my EMT card. He's like, oh, can you leave next week to go to the program for 5 months? And I was like, let me just talk to my wife real quick. Like, let me just double check with her that she's cool with it. We didn't have a daughter. So my wife's like, yeah, have fun. And so I went down to Fort Bragg for 5 months, 5.5 months. And the paramedic program was 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. He only had Sundays off. And I was like, oh, dude, this is hard, you know? And so knocked that out and came back and was out to breakfast one morning, and I saw that Rockville was a volunteer fire department. I was like, oh, that's, you know, I have a medic card now, and I'm assuming my firefighting certifications are expired because it was from 2008, 2009. And so 11 years prior, essentially. And I was like, let me just go see what's up with that. You know what I mean? Like, that'll give me some sort of excitement versus sitting in the hospital and kind of, you know, doing that. Because I was in charge of the emergency department for the enlisted sailors, and it was good, but it's not what I was accustomed to again. So got into Rockville, and they're like, no, your certifications work. They kind of spun me up so they didn't just throw me in the back of a fire engine and say, like, you know, good luck, dude. Like, it was good. And we have a lot of guys that work in DC, and they're like, hey man, we're always looking for paramedics if you're interested. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, you know, I looked at the pay, and I could buy back my military time in DC. So I was like, talked to my wife, and I was like, hey, like, what do you think about living here? And she's like, I don't like the snow. And I was like, she's from Mississippi. So we're like, yeah, I don't really like it either, but it's not that bad, right? You know, we can deal with it. And so I applied to DC. That was in the beginning of 2020. And that was right around COVID time. So I was getting out. They were like, yep, July academy start date. And I was like, sweet, that's perfect. I'll get out in April, have a few months to kind of just live the veteran life of, like, you know, just doing nothing, grow my hair out, you know, just kind of like do whatever, you know, this would be sweet. I'm not going to wake up at any time. And then COVID hit, and I was like, they're like, hey, we don't know where to start. And I was like, ooh. So, you know, fortunately we live within our means, so we made it work. And my wife was still working at the time, and I got some odd jobs doing some whatever stuff, and started in November of 20 in DC, and it's been the best thing that I've ever done in my life, I think, right? And like, again, I'm biased to our fire department, and I know there's other great fire departments out there. Like, I'm not knocking anybody, but I truly am so fortunate that, like, this series of events of me just kind of being a knucklehead that's like, yeah, that seems cool, let me go do that, has turned into now where it's like, I absolutely love what I do. Like, I love going to work. It's so much fun. It really is my dream. That was my dream job when I was a kid. So it's like, it's really, really cool. So
yeah, you had a pretty awesome journey, just that first little bit. And I've definitely got a soft spot for DC. Like, it's a storied department in its own right. And then you've got, you know, depending on what region you're in, like, you know, people talk about FDNY and Boston and LA and some of the other parts, but for like mid-Atlantic, at least for me, I thought, you know, like Baltimore and DC are the two heavy hitters, right? And me also, having spent time in PG, that was kind of like just a DC, you know, substation, right? So, I'm with you, man. That was where, if I didn't get to where I was, my plan was to finish college and then apply to DC, and obviously my whole journey changed up on that. But just the people there, the type of calls you run, the tradition and history for the city, much less the department, is just like insane. And you have so much in such a small district too. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's 69.3 square land miles, and then we got some water obviously around us. And it's like, I mean, I think we're right around 300,000 runs a year that are handled by 33 engine companies and 16 truck companies and 3 rescue squads, and like a handful of ambulances and medic units. So it's like, it's pretty busy. It's a little bit of a beatdown sometimes, but it's like my first day, and it's like, after talking to you and you're like, oh, I want to hear some, stuff for the whatever we discussed previously, but like my first day, I went down to DC because I was a medic. I got hired as a medic, and you do like a month in the classroom, and they kind of like get you spun up on protocols. And then you go out to the companies for 3 months. You ride a medic unit, an engine company, and then a medic unit. And then after that, you take a test with the medical director. If you're cleared and he signs off on you, then you go to the fire school and you get like firefighting stuff, and then you're off, right? You're out to the companies again. So my first day on a medic unit in DC was January 6th, like the January 6th. And
wow.
Politicalness aside, it was an immediate strain on resources, right?
Yeah.
Like, additional people hired apparently, and to manage we do tons of First Amendment demonstrations all the time. So, but nothing that we thought like that was gonna be that scale. So it was it was my first day on a medic unit, and I remember getting off in the morning. We ate breakfast and then didn't see the firehouse until 7 a.m. the next morning. And so I remember getting off work, and they had called us back to the school that morning for something. And I just remember sitting there like, this is it. I'm not, because I was still kind of like, my wife and I were like, we'll give it a try. We'll see what happens if another fire department, because I was, what you do, and you put your application out to a bunch of departments and you kind of see where things are going to go. And then, we'll if something different comes up, we want to live somewhere else, and I was like, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
And then it's only gotten better from there. I mean, my time on an engine company, that the following month, my last day there, we had a fire in their first due, in Engine 30's first due, and there was another fire that was going on at the same time, kind of close. At 30 wasn't on, but all the additional companies on the box were. So 30 was by themselves, right? And I'm recruit. I don't know what's going on, right? I'm like very, very new, and they've got a apartment building that's got a couple apartments off, and the whole place is charged with smoke, and like they've got babies hanging out of windows, and they've got like one of the sergeant that was in charge of the engine that day, like she's giving her size up as she's walking, she's talking, and someone just like tosses a baby from this 3rd story, and she like one hands it, sets it down, and like just keeps walking, doing her 360, like her size up, and having incoming companies, and like the wagon drivers throwing ladders, helping make rescues and running the pump. And it was just like, I was like, dude, like we bought our house, like I think the next week. I was like, all right, like
I'm in.
Next week we're like, yep, we're buying a house in Frederick. This is where we're staying. I'm here for 25 years. Like, that's it. So, yeah, it's been great. So going through the fire school and, getting taught all that stuff again, and then going to my company. I went out to Engine 8, and I was there for 3.5 years. It was fantastic. It's right below 10 engine Trinidad. Yeah. Right, and the RFK is going to be that's their first due, is the RFK Stadium. So it's kind of in that little neighborhood back there. A little bit of a sleeper house, DC's got a lot of competition between the companies, which I love, because I'm super competitive. So there's a lot of smack talking between the companies and whatnot, and it's great. And so 8 engines, a little bit of a sleeper house. Like, it's kind of, no one sometimes don't put a lot of respect on the 8 engine, but I loved it, and I had a great wagon driver. My officers were fantastic. My chiefs were great. I had 2 chiefs. It's a chief's house, so I had a battalion chief in the house, and both of them that I had my time there were phenomenal dudes. So that was really, really great for me. So
that's awesome. That's a good section to be in, man.
Yeah, and it's like, and like in DC, you'll get a lot of experience very, very quickly.
Oh yeah.
the run volume that we have. And it's like, they do a pretty good job at preparing you for the fires and for the medicals, but it's like you learn a lot about yourself on that medic unit by yourself. There's a lot of long nights, and a lot of tough calls. And it just seems like some days especially on that medic unit, it's one bad run. And then you're like, all right, well, the rest of the day will be cool. Nope. Compounded. And I just remember we had a really pretty bad trauma call. It was pretty bad. And the battalion chief had already called me on my cell phone. He's like, hey, I put you out of service, come back to the firehouse. And I was like, all right, because they were again, he's an awesome chief, and they were they look after us there, and they do the best they can. And he's like, hey, you're out of service, come back to the firehouse as soon as you're done at the hospital. So we come back, and he's like, hey, I know you ran this call. We got an overtime body that comes in. It'll come in. We'll put you out. We'll send you home if you need to. Yada yada yada. And I was like, well, what about the guy driving me? He's like, well, we're trying to find somebody now. And I was like, well, I'm not going home until he goes home. We started this shift together. We're ending the shift together. I went and talked to him. I was like, hey man, do you want to finish this day? And he's like, yeah, dude, let's do this together. I was like, all right, cool. And so that is that closeness and that family type of thing that we have within your company. We're together in this. That is just like with the Marines. It's it's us, you know what I mean? This is all we have. It's only us. It's the same thing that's kind of translated into the fire department for me with that. And I absolutely love it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, it's amazing that you can go from the Navy and Marine Corps brotherhood and go straight into this. And DC certainly exemplifies that. And just to have that many years in a row and just go from one culture right into the next one and have that same, foundation and culture there is just that's so cool. I'm sure for you, I mean, it's a major life change too. Getting married, moving to a new town, changing careers. I mean, yeah, sure, it's public safety, paramilitary-ish, but it's different, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of unknowns for sure. So to go from one to the next has got to be a breath of fresh air and reassuring if for nothing else. But then once you're in it, man, I'm sure,
I'm every time I stuff. So my lieutenant, it's funny because I didn't really have any I didn't know what I wanted to do when I came to DC. The biggest reason I picked DC was oh, they have a fireboat. That's cool. They have armed investigators. That's cool. I don't know if I want to do that. They got a lot of they're doing a lot of. We do a lot of stuff on the EMS side, the blood products that we're doing now. We're giving blood in the field. That program is freaking. That it's I think the first 6 months that we were doing it, we gave more blood than Maryland state troopers had in 2 years. We doubled the amount of blood in 6 months that we gave. It was insane amount of number. So DC for me was oh, there's tons of opportunities. I don't know what I want to do, but I won't feel stuck just being in that one spot, Yeah. And so my first lieutenant on probation he came on DC in 2000. Yeah, he came in around 2000. He's appointed Truck 7, and then he went to Squad 3, and he was in the back of Squad 3 for a while as a private, promoted to sergeant, went down to the battalion to a truck company, came back to Squad 3, and then when he promoted to lieutenant, came to us, and he was all in on the squad, on the rescue squad, and he was a great lieutenant. He came to us, and he wasn't I don't want to be here. I only want to be on the squad. He was okay, well, we're here. We're going to do, this is the standard. This is what we're going to do. We're going to train. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But he was a great leader, and he didn't, he managed us well, and he managed the problems well. And, he's like, hey, have you considered special ops? And I was I don't know. Cause when I looked at those guys at that point in my career, I was they're all, top level, high tier firemen, and I'm not there yet. I'm not at that point. And especially on probation, I was I don't know, and he maybe 6 months after I got off of probation, he got pulled back into the battalion to be a lieutenant at Rescue Squad 2. And we kept in contact. I looked at him as a mentor, and I kept talking to him and stuff like that. And so I came eligible for special ops. Like it opened up to, I had enough time on the job and it opened up to me. And he's like, hey, you should really put in, like, I think you'd be a good fit. And, I was like, I don't know, Lou, like, I don't know if I'm there yet. Right. I haven't seen a ton of fire. I don't know. Right. And he's like, we'll get you there. We'll put you where you need to be, riding an engine company. You're going to, I don't want to say you're pigeonholed on the fire, but the way we run our fires, you're very much like I pull up, I pull this line, I find the fire goes out, right? There's really not, as an engine company fireman in DC, you have a lot of autonomy that are compared to other departments, especially as a lineman, because your officer's not always right next to you. So you have to make kind of decisions like, is the fire above me, below me, what's going on? But outside of that, it's really not, it's not much, and I'm not trying to downplay it, because our department is very much an engine company driven department where we're very aggressive with our fire attack.
Yeah.
Like offensive mode is the plan, but so he's like, come, just put in for special ops. If you don't like it, you can leave. Like you can just transfer out, and at the time we were doing the 90-day process, which was, to get into special ops, you take a written test. They would give you like the study material, just like a promotional exam, and you'd study that. You get a written test, and then you would go take a swim test, and then you do an interview, and then you would get ranked from 1 to however many people applied. And then they would just, as a vacancy came open, they would pull you to that spot that had a vacancy, and those guys on that shift would train you for 90 days. And at the end of that, you would take a test, and if you passed, you stayed, and if you failed, you went back to wherever, right? The tradition in DC, because of like the competitiveness, was like, you don't go back to your company, right? Like my chief, as great as he was, and I love him, Chief Sheehan, he was awesome. I think I was halfway through my 90-day, and he texted me, he's like, how's it going? I was like, oh, I think it's going good, Chief. Like, it's a lot. And he's like, well, we don't take losers in the 2nd Battalion, so if you don't pass, you're not coming back here. Like, don't think you're coming back here. I was like, good enough, Chief. Like, yep. So yes, I got through that 90-day process. I got up there, and I was really honest with my guys. Like, I went to my same lieutenant that was on probation. I went to his shift, which was fantastic how that worked out. I don't know if they pulled strings or what happened, right? But, the vacancy came open, and I was the next on the list, so it worked out really well for me. And the guys in the back of my squad, like my squad driver got like 17 or 18 years on. Joe and Ed are like 24 and 23 years on. Almost all of it in special ops. And then Greg I think he's right around 18 as well. So I'm not really great at math because I went to Florida public school, but like that's a lot of years of experience in the rescue squad. And so when I sat down my first day there, and I was like, hey guys, I don't know if I'll be good at this. I don't know what this is really outside looking in. But you guys I told them, like, you're a high performing team, and if you don't think I'm going to be there, like, I'm adult enough to tell me, like, hey, you're not working out for our team, and I will quit. Like, I'll ring the bell, like at Bud's, I'll get out of here and I'll go back to wherever they want to send me. I'm like, but I don't want to be a detriment to the team, because again, through the Marine Corps, it was team over self, and it was whatever you can do to make the team better. If you don't want to be the weakest link in that chain, right? And those guys are like, no, we'll get you, we'll let you know. And they are very outspoken. And you're like, no, you'll know. Don't worry. You don't have to you're not going to wonder. And I was like, all right, cool. So they got me through that 90-day process, and like just every day was just, we would do something like one of the disciplines that we're responsible for, and I'd be like, rope stuff, I don't really know. Like, I'm not a super big fan of heights. I've always not, like, I've had a fast rope out of helicopters, and I'm just like, no, dude, like, I don't want to do it. My first time, I hate to go back, but my first time fast roping, I missed the training where you go off of like a rope tower, because I was doing something with a Marine that was sick or something. And so I missed the initial training. So when we went to get on the helicopters, I didn't know what I was doing. So like, all right, Doc, it's no big deal. Just hold on. Just like you're sliding a fire pole, but I'd never done that either, but you just hold on and get to the bottom. Well, I was also at nighttime, and I couldn't see the ground. So I don't know, like, it is just a lot, right? There's a lot going on. I'm under night vision goggles, in the 53s, the Super Sea Stallions, they call it the hell hole, which is the hole in the middle of the helicopter, right? It's not super big. I'm a relatively big guy. And then you throw like body armor on, you throw your med bag on. So I get on this rope, and I told one of my Marines, I was like, hey, if I freeze, just push me. You know what I mean? Like, just give me a nudge. That way because I don't want to look like a coward in front of the guys. I never have. So I'm like, just nudge me, like, just push me. So he didn't have to push me. I get on the rope. I slide down 4 feet, and I get hung up in the hellhole with my med bag. And he is just like stomping on me to get me down. So I'm hanging on this rope, and he's stomping on me. And I'm like, dude, I don't like heights. So I'm just like, I don't know how far the ground is away, because night vision is not really great for distance. And so we get down. But so like, coming to do the ropes discipline stuff, had that little anxiety in the back of my head. And I was like, all right, I've made it through that. Like, I've never been so overcome by fear I couldn't do something, but I was just like, I'm not going bungee jumping on my days off. You know what I mean? So, but I get into the rope stuff, and we'd be up high off of something. I'd be like, this is awesome. Like, this is the coolest stuff ever. And then the next day would be like structural collapse. We'd be doing something with structural collapse, and I'd be like, I don't know, banging hammers, like, cutting wood, like whatever. And then we start building stuff to like do shoring. I'm like, this is freaking cool too. And then, lifting and all that stuff, cutting cars, like, it was awesome every day. And those guys got me through that 90-day process. And I missed 1 point on the final exam. There's only been one person that's ever aced it. And then I was like knocking it out of the park. I was crushing it on time. I still am the fastest to do it. I will take that title, I guess. Cool. I think I did it like 30 minutes faster than the next closest guy, because it's an all-day test. You go there as soon as the sun comes up, essentially. Like, we were waiting for the sun to come up so I could start.
Okay.
And, it ends in the it's scheduled for 12 hours. So if you get done quicker, you get done quicker. So we were knocking out of the park, and I was getting through it, and I missed one little knot, because you have to tie it. There's one section you have to tie knots. And I remember Eric Budd, you had Bud on.
Yeah.
And he was one of my proctors for the test.
Yeah. Awesome.
And he asked me to tie it, and I tied something. He gave me a face, like, and I was like, that's not right. So I undid it, and I like looked at it. I was holding the rope in my hands. I was like, I don't got it, Bud. He's like, I'm sorry. He's like, all right. Sounds good. He's like, you almost had it. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So crushed it. And like, just being, that test was pretty exhausting, just physically, because you do all those things. You build shoring, you cut a car by yourself, do a whole rope system setup, run some saws, do some weld, like cutting with a acetylene torch. And then at the end of that, when you're like dog tired, it's like, all right, we're going to go do searches now, because rescue squad is responsible for searches in DC. So they're like, you're going to go do searches, and you had to search the burn building for 5 victims and then remove them. So it was like, and if you run out of air, we run hour bottles on our in special ops. So if you run out of air, you fail. Like, there's no, like, that's it. And the way they weighted the points was like, that was a lot of the points. So even though I had crushed it all the way up until there, like, so it's like that last evolution, like, you got to get it. And so that was probably like accomplishment wise, like in my life, that was up there. Like, it was
cool. I
didn't think it would be at the time, and I was like, like, it's just another part of the job. It's cool, right? But then I got done it, and looking back, I was like, this is phenomenal. Like, this is really great. And these guys, and I think it was mostly because of the guys that I had in the back of the squad, just like learning from them and hearing what they had to say about stuff was just like phenomenal. I'm in like, I think I'm in the best position in our entire fire department right now, being the junior guy in the back of the most senior rescue squad in the city, like time on the job wise.
Sure.
Because it's like every day I'll like, every day I go to work, I try to write down, like, towards the end of the shift, because we still do watch. I don't know if you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that witching hour, like 3, 4 a.m. when you're up on watch by yourself and the firehouse is quiet, like, I'll try to write down like a couple things that I learned through the day, and whatever it is, like if it was like I don't know, like something really simple, like, how much a cement truck fully loaded weighs, like, that's just something you might need to know, right? or if it was like some super like one story that they had, like a war story, they were like, oh yeah, we were, this and that was happening, and just something I can write down and keep in my back pocket, because I'm very much aware that in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to be the senior guy there with only 10-ish years on. And that's it's a little scary, to be completely honest, because it's like, there's going to be guys below me and I have to pass this knowledge down to them that I'm getting, right? And just because we go to less fires than we were several years ago. I know there's some statistics out there to say we actually are going to more, but they're smaller,
Yeah, right.
But yes, I don't want to be that weak link in the chain that breaks this special ops thing for squad 2, So it's like, I take that stuff very seriously. So I write everything down. So it's the
learning curve is steep. You got an amazing crew, but like once they're gone, like that's it. It is on you. So yeah, you gotta fill the gaps and fill the holes. And something you mentioned that I really appreciate is, yeah, they're holding you accountable. They're gonna bust your balls when they need to, but they are also setting you up for success. There's some cultures out there where it's like, hey, here are the resources. Like, don't fuck this up.
Yeah.
And then you're off on your own. Whereas like, no, we're going to hold you accountable. Yeah, we're still going to bust your balls. Here are the resources, and we're going to teach you our way. We're going to show you it because you're one of us, and we want you to pass this. If you're not successful, like you probably really messed up, right? So yeah. I think that's pretty admirable, because not everybody out there is doing that. You kind of have to fend for yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a two-way relationship too. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely like I'm aware of that as a new guy, and I want to get that information in, because our department in general, like, I think the number, I could be off a little bit, but like 300 to 400 people are eligible to retire starting in December. Like,
yeah,
I mean, we're an 18 to 2,000 person department, so like that's a huge jump, right? And so I don't, like, again, I don't want to be that person that's I don't know how familiar you are, but like DJ Shipley does GBRS Group. He talks a lot. He was a SEAL, and he talks about knowledge transfer, and like that's his big thing. Was when he got into the SEAL teams, he didn't have the guys ahead of him didn't do a great job of transferring knowledge. Like, he would ask them, like, hey, why are you holding your rifle this way? And like, they're like, I don't know, this is what I do. And he started pulling more questions out of them, and then eventually got to the point where it's like the C grip on your rifle, right? They're like, why are you doing that? That was his thing. And they're like, I don't know. Well, that translates better into their pistol, and that's why it just feels more comfortable. So they're both the same positions when they're shooting their rifle and their pistol. There's not a lot of difference in that. And so that's kind of what I've tried to learn from these guys, is like, I might ask them something like, well, this is just how I search, right? Because like we hear that in the fire service a lot. I feel like this is just what we do, right? And you're like, but why? Like, so what is your rationale behind that? And so it was those things that I've tried to figure out a way to continue to ask the question of, like, to try to really dial in, like, how can that be taught to me, or how can I understand that, and then how can I retranslate that to somebody else later on down the road? So it's like, we're doing a search project. I don't want to speak on it too much, but they're studying how we actually search. They've got a neuroscientist of some sort, and then an engineer out of Seattle, and he's also a fireman in Seattle. And they built an entire second floor row house in the warehouse behind our firehouse, and they were sending us through, and they're just like, hey, just do your search. And you don't know how many victims there are. They show you a picture of the house outside, because it was modeled after a real house. And they're like, you have a fire in the kitchen, and you're on the team that goes above to search the second floor. And you're like, okay. And then you go in, and they have cameras everywhere. They got GoPros on you, and they have dialed in, like, where you touched in the room, where you didn't touch in the room, how much time it took you to do that, how much air you've consumed, if you held the Halligan bar in your hand the entire time, if you didn't. And so, like, they're coming out with a lot of information out of that, just on the pool of the special ops guys that they've done go through that, and a couple of truck companies in the city. And some of the stuff that's coming out of that is super, super interesting. Like, just historically, like, search with a bar, like, keep the bar in your hand in case you need it, right? Well, you're way faster searching a room without any tools in your hands. And so that's something that came out of that, you know. It's like, but you have to be aware, like spatially aware where you're going to leave that bar, you know. And so it's stuff like that. And I think, and back to the knowledge transfer and kind of tying back into the military, part of that drill was you're blindfolded and they want you to see how far you go. And they tell you to turn around and go back the same distance. And then they would give you a distance to go and say, hey, go 10 feet. And then you would go what you thought was 10 feet. And I remember getting done that drill and I didn't know what my numbers were at the time. And I was like, I have no idea how far I went. Like, I have no idea how far I went. That's not a good thing, right? And so in the Marine Corps, when you do land nav, you have to have a pace count. So they take 100 meters and then you walk that several times over different terrain and you count how many steps you take. And you guesstimate how many steps roughly is 100 meters for you. So when you're trying to figure out how to get somewhere, you just count your pace count, and you're like, that's how you get kind of close to where you're kind of navigate to. And so I was like, well, I can do the same thing on my hands and knees, or like my one knee scoot drag thing, do it a bunch of different ways with a known distance. And then I know when I'm crawling around, if they make me do this drill again, because again, I'm competitive, I won't touch this test, you know, even though it's not scores, but I just love to brag and like, people. So, I was like, so I know again, right? So I'm in the firehouse with all my gear on, like, hey, I got to go 10 feet. All right, it's 2 scoots, right? 2 scoots is 10 feet. If I'm on my hands and knees, it's like 4, right? Whatever it is. So there's a little stuff like that translated over from the Marine Corps for me. That was pretty cool. And with some of the stuff in special ops, that just trying to be better every day, right? Not to be corny and stuff like that, but like I don't want to be the weakest link in the team ever. And I'm already at somewhat of a disadvantage because of my time on the job. So the factors that I control is like my physical fitness is one. I can be physically fit, so that takes off a lot of issues right off the jump, and then kind of think and ask the questions that I need to ask so I can understand the process and understand what I need to be doing for whatever discipline we're working in. So it's great. It's really hard. It's really hard to keep up with that stuff, but every day when I go into work, I try to be there 100% and just like from 4 a.m. because we leave a little bit early. So from 4 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night, whenever we lay down, depending on run volume, like I'm trying to just get as much information out of these guys as I can, because it's not, and they're not going to be there for long. So
yeah, man, I just so appreciate that. One of my buddies, Dave LeBlanc, he was saying, like, listen, you don't necessarily have to be into the job all the time, but when you're on the job, you have to be 100% in. And especially with the roles that you're filling, man, like your mind has to be so switched on. I'm sure when you finish your tour, you were just like mentally and physically just exhausted, just no pun intended, just drinking through a fire hose all day. But people just took a shred of that, because like, I don't care what you do on your days off, but like when you're here, just be present and show up and just be all in for that day. And then especially with the roles that you're trying to fill, man, like the bandwidth that you need to accomplish all the things you need to accomplish in a special operations company is just so wide and varied. Now I can nerd out on this forever. If you're cool with it, man, like let's switch gears a little bit, because your first couple shifts, like formally assigned to it, were pretty freaking insane. Like, I know we talked about it. That's one of the things I want to dig on with the crash, just all the things going on in the firehouse. And some of the calls you ran that first bit. So let's get into the crash and some of your
we ran a couple good fires during my 90-day process, but you're riding extra on the squad. So we have 6 people, right? So we work in teams of 2, the officer and the A team fireman, and then the B team, 2 B team guys, and then the squad wagon driver is kind of the fill-in guy, like the free safety, if you will, right? He just fills in the gaps, goes where he's supposed to be. That's a difficult position, right? So when I was on my 90-day, you are riding extra, and so you're with the lieutenant and one of the senior guys, and they're essentially holding your hand, and it's not in a negative way, but it's just like, hey, this is, let's just get you through this stuff, and when we go into fire, we'll do whatever. And then but we ran a couple decent fires, and it wasn't anything like, super crazy or nothing like that. And then, a little anxiety the first tour, where it's like, all right, we're not heavy anymore. It's just me and my officer. Like,
Is it?
Like hopefully everything I've learned over the last 3 months is enough to keep me treading water for the tour, excuse me. And then get in at 4 a.m., shift change, check the truck out, because I'm, still making sure where I know everything is, because that rescue squad is got a lot of stuff on it. And, going through that, talking to the guys, and get put out for a box. Right. It was in Engine 11's first due. So right down the street from us where we're at. Report of it was a kitchen fire, apartment fire, and one person missing in there. So it's like, all right, well, this is it. Like, this is what we do. This is the job. Like, remember what they've taught me during my 90-day. How I'm supposed to be searching appropriately. Don't hug the wall like the recruit style. Like, let's hold the wall. Like, that stuff that we went over, and try to take some good deep breaths and kind of just center myself a little bit and be like, I know what I'm doing. I've been trained. Let's go do it. We get in there, and it wasn't it wasn't a snot slinger, as they say, but a little fire in there, and we crawl in, and it was a tight little row home that they chopped up into apartments. So we get into the first apartment where the fire was, and I make my way past the engine company that's in there they're putting their hand line out, and they don't know me. I think I still had my Engine 8 shield on my helmet. So like the competition of engine companies are like, no, you're not going past me. I'm like, I'm on the squad now, move. Like, get out of the way. So I scoot past them and doing my search, and I ended up crawling right on top of the lady, like right, because like I couldn't really see well, so I got right up on top of her, and I was like, oh, and it was like, I'm sure this was less than a millisecond, right? But I was just like, what do I do? I yelled to the Ed, who was the other fireman on B team that day with me, and I'm like, hey Ed, she's over here. Like, we got one. He's like, all right. And so he was making his way back to me, and like kind of how we search. Like, one will search on their way to the fire, and the other one will search on the floor away from the fire and make their way back around. So we're kind of covering two spaces, or as much space as possible. So got her up, got her out. Ed showed up. I made my radio transmission to command and got her outside to the EMS unit. I think they transported. I don't think she ended up unfortunately making it, but that was it was unfortunate. And like, as a fireman, you don't want to go to someone's house fire. You don't want somebody to experience that, but you want to be there to help mitigate that problem and be that person.
Sure.
It was kind of, it was cool, for lack of a better word, to go through all that training and get all that knowledge, and then immediately the first tour, like, this, you're it, you know what I mean? So like, and to do that and be like, all right, and it's again, how competitive I am just by nature. It's like, I don't ever want to not miss someone, you know what I mean? That's never, like, I don't, like, let's keep training harder, you know what I mean? It was just more motivation to keep going. So that was my first tour. And then my second tour was the night of the airplane crash, and it was a pretty uneventful, like every story. The fire department, we just finished dinner, we did some training all day, more rope stuff, no real incidents that I can think of. And finished up dinner. We're doing housework after dinner, got the mops out, doing the thing, it banged out. And, the initial reports were, it was a helicopter crash with 6 people. So we're going down there. Joe and Ed are both divers on the dive team on the back of my squad. Ed was off for the day. And I remember he called me because I was the only one, because I'm not getting dressed to dive, right? Like, I'm a diver at that point. And so he called me and he's like, hey, what is it? I was like, it looks like there's 6 people is what the notes are saying. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna start making my way that way. And then as that happened, they updated us and they said 60. And I was like, it's actually 60. He's like, okay, I'll meet you at the fireboat. This is because we were heading to pick up to get on boats to get out there, right? Okay. And So Joe got dressed. He was dressed in the back, and then we got down there. I waited for Ed to show up, and I got all his stuff squared away because we'd gone over dive stuff during my 90-day. It wasn't officially a part of the 90-day, but it was a nice little break of like, once I got towards the end of my 90-day process where I was like, I got this stuff down, dude. Like, we don't like, let's not, you know, they were like, they went over their dive equipment, nothing super in depth, but so I got they all went out. My squad driver, my lieutenant, and then the one diver, Joe, went out. I waited back on the pier for Ed to show up, and he got all the stuff ready to go. And then more divers are showing up. And again, we're an 1,800 person department, and I'd only ever worked in Southeast with the engine company. I didn't really, when I worked overtime, it was only down in that area essentially. So I don't know a lot of people on the job, and especially in special ops, because I never had interactions with them. So dudes are showing up on the pier, and they're dressing out. I'm helping them get their stuff. And I'm like, hey, I'm Grant. I'm the new guy in squad 2, just passed my 90-day. Who are you? And they'd be like, I'm so-and-so. I'm at the fireboat. I'm a diver. I'm like, all right, man. And an MPD would show up with their boats and just ferry people out. So I was like unofficially the fireboat like logistics officer, right? Like, or the accountability officer. And I'm like, I don't know who these guys are. So I always carry a notepad with me. Again, another thing I picked up from the Marine Corps was just have something to write on.
Yeah,
so,
nice.
All right, this guy's this is what he does. He went out at this time with MPD boat, whatever. And Ed showed up. Ed went out, and then with another thing, and it turned into it. I mean, the scale of it was obviously pretty large, like we all know now, kind of looking back. When you get into special ops, they tell you there's going to be times when you're on fires that a chief is going to look at you and ask for your opinion and what you want to do. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm not like, I don't, like, okay, like, I don't know. He's going to be asking me, will you put that blue 2 or 3 or 1 on your helmet? Like, they are like, and I'm like, yeah. Right. And so the fire chief was off that day, so we had the acting fire chief. Our fire chief ended up coming back, obviously, but he called down to the fireboat and he's like, "Who's there?" And I was like, "Hey, this is Private Peyronel, like Squad 2." And he's like, "Who's at the boat?" I'm like, "I got all these names, blah 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 blah." And he's like, he's giving me direction. And I was like, "Chief, like I'm a private, like I'm doing the best I can down here." Because he was like,
radio edit.
I understand what he was trying to do, but and the guys were, because I was like, hey, the captain of the fireboat had command of the water essentially, and he was running the charge of the diver. So I was like, report to him, and then he'll task you out. So you're not just getting in the water, for safety reasons, obviously. And these guys are all type A dudes. They all want to get in the water, but they understand that like that is a part of our policy to make sure you're not just diving on your own out there in free space, because it's probably the most dangerous thing we do. Like just going.
Oh yeah, it's got to be intense.
So,
radio edit.
I'd be like, "Who are you? What's your time?" Like the same stuff I was going through.
Radio edit.
And so,
like, all right, deuces.
Yeah. So it turned into that, and like just those guys getting out on the water. It was just. I don't want to get into too much detail about, what was going on out there, but it was, my lieutenant joined our department in 2000. He was at the Pentagon on September 11th. He was one of the DC companies that got tasked to go over there and help. And he said after the end of it, he's like, this is worse than the Pentagon. This is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And like a lot of it affected a lot of people. That the guys that were running the mass casualty buses that we have, they actually come out of our same firehouse too. The engine company is responsible for it with another truck company. They're part of the task force. And, the stuff that they had to do and like sorting people's stuff and making, and just trying to do the best they can. Cause again, back to, no, you're not prepared for something like that. You're not prepared to,
especially that scale.
What's that?
especially just the scale of it. I mean,
Yeah.
commercial passenger plane meets Black Hawk and is down underwater.
Yeah.
Like, that's intense.
Yeah. And like, it is just, again, I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want to say too much, but like, just the horrificness of it was, it was a lot for a lot of people. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day. He'd been on for a couple of years. Like he resigned from the fire department after that. I don't know if that was necessarily like the thing that was for that, but like, you know, we've had guys go off to the center and get some help and get some resources to manage stuff. And I mean, that I've had a couple people on the job that I work with that have gone for various reasons, not just the plane crash, and they all seem to come back like way better. So it's, I'm glad that that's a resource that we have. And
I know, and totally stop me, or we can beat around the bush if we're going down roads that we shouldn't be going down. But I mean, it's at one point you're tending, and I mean, you're talking about how, I'm trying not to get like overly graphic here, but
radio edit,
and they're just doing this for hours. Right?
Yeah. And these guys are like, talk about endurance, like physical and mental endurance, right? Like they'd come up and I get a little emotional talking about it just because how much I respect these guys, and especially after this moment, just because like I don't know as if I've ever been, I wasn't in the water, right? I wasn't diving. I'm not a diver. I don't know as if I've ever been in a situation where I needed that long-term physical endurance or mental endurance to be focused at like that. And like these guys would come out of the water, ask for a bottle of water. The fireboat has a little galley or whatever where they like sell snacks and stuff. I took a trash bag and I filled all that full because I was like, these guys are going to need food at some point. They would come out, they would pull something out of the trash bag, whatever it was, like candy bar, granola bar, whatever, grab a sip of water, refit their stuff, and they were back in. It wasn't like, you know, they were just, it was just the most impressive thing I've probably ever seen in my life. And like, I already had these guys on a super high pedestal and looked up to them. And then after that, I was just like, these are like, and talking to them, they're like, yeah, man, you know, like, and they know what they did was important, right? And they know the gravity of it, but like, it was just like, yeah, it's just, this is what you do. You know what I mean? Like, you're in special ops. It's what you do. Like, there's no, like, we're not doing this to get a medal. We're not doing this for recognition. This is, I just want to be the person that does this. You know, I want to be the guy that's called upon and can perform, you know? And it was just like, yeah, man, it was, the words are really, really hard to describe it. And like I said, I get a little emotional when I was talking about it when we were doing all the debriefings and stuff like that, just because like I knew how bad some of them were hurting through that.
Yeah.
And just like, it was just, they were just, they're studs. Like, I don't have any other, like,
oh, man. Yeah, I think we get it. It's, what you all went through, especially those like in the water, I think it's probably, I go as far as saying it's incomprehensible for a lot of people, man. Like to incident of that magnitude in the nation's capital with that many casualties, and you're working in the murky like river water of the district, and then you're operating night. Right. Yeah. It's
hard.
And you were saying like they're coming out and they've got, I mean, they're just covered in jet fuel too. Like there's so many little factors and curveballs that they keep having to deal with. Like you're telling the guys like, no, like you actually need to rinse off. Like you're just completely covered in nastiness. Like there's so many little things that kept coming out of this. That was just like, and they're like, no, I'm good. Candy bar back in.
Yeah. And it's just like, you know, if I'm ever in a, like, hopefully nothing like that ever happens again, but I hope I can perform to that standard of these guys when I, like, that is the standard that is set for me right now. You know what I mean? So it's like, everything I do between now and whenever that happens again is like, in my opinion, is me preparing for that, to be that standard. I want some guy that's been on the job for 5 years looking at me and being like, that's a special ops fireman. Like that's a rescue squad. That's a squad Like, you know what I mean? Because that's what I was doing. I was like, I was in over my head, like completely honest, you know, I like the training and performance, like I was managing, but like they just like those dudes were like just that's a squad man, right? Like that is the pinnacle of what we do. And so it's like I want to meet that standard, you know, when that time comes. And it's like, yeah, they and like our I didn't know Lieutenant Heaney personally. I was a recruit when I met him, and he had when I got to Squad 2, he was off on POD because he was battling cancer, and you know, he had lost his fight with that probably a week before, and so the next day, the company was going out of service to prepare for his funeral. So we literally like it was so surreal because you just went and did all this, you saw all this horrific stuff, and you went through this, you performed at such a high level, you're exhausted. We all came back to the firehouse. The platoon number 1 was on. They had come in, but we were out of service because they were getting ready for the funeral. They were already at the firehouse. They're like, you guys go shower, get this nastiness off your body. We'll start cleaning gear and like doing a gross decon. And but then we had to do practice for the funeral. Like, you know, and like, and again, speaking to the quality of those men that are there and women, we have a couple of girls in the back of our rescue squad in the company, and speaking to the quality and character of those people, it's like they showered, they put on a fresh pair of uniform. I think we all laid down for like an hour, woke up, and then right into practice. And it was the same intensity that they were doing for the fires, for my training on my 90-day, for that plane crash. The same intensity was being put into performing well for a funeral for the lieutenant. It was, it like, again, it's just like
4 hours.
Huh?
In 24 hours.
Yeah. Plane crash was at 8 o'clock. At 8 a.m. the next morning, we were 8:30. We were practicing. Like, hey, no, make sure you're pivoting this way. Make sure we're lifting it this high. Make sure you're holding it above your head. You're slouching a little bit. Make sure you're standing up straight. You know what I mean? Like that precision, and like some people can't handle that type of environment in general, where like perfection is the standard, right? And but for whatever reason, like I really thrive and like love that, you know, like I love crushing an objective and then being like, yeah, but you did it in 4 minutes, and you probably could have done it in like 3:45. You know, you know, I could, you know, you like next time, you know, and that was the thing. So it's like right into that. It was just, let's make this the best thing ever. And it was for several days after that where we're still practicing for the funeral, and it's no one was you know how when you get tired and sometimes you get a little testy with people, none of that. And especially with the expectation, like we'd practice taking the casket out of the caisson wagon that we had. Like, no, we can do that better. All right, let's try that again. We can do that better. And so that whole time period from doing my 90-day, finding that victim in a fire, doing the plane crash, and immediately into that that evolution of making sure the funeral was the best it could be, was like, this is my place. Like, this is my, and you can ask my wife, you know, like in the Marine Corps, it really teaches you, you're a hammer, right? And if you're a hammer, everything's a nail. So the Marine Corps teaches you can just brute force your way through anything, right? Yep. Like if it's hard,
there's no plan B, you just plan A harder.
Into the rescue squad is another bit, that period, and then going through the rescue school, because I got to go through that. That period of really, really changed a lot of what I did. Like we were putting my daughter's nursery together before she was born, and we were putting up wallpaper, like the sticky wallpaper stuff. And I was like, minute detail, like making sure they lined up. And I was really into it. And I had just come off a shift, and my wife is like, who is this? Who are you? And I was like, babe, we're building Steinway pianos. This isn't, you know, like, you wouldn't get it, you know? And she's like, I have never seen you like this. She's like, are you tired? I'm like, yeah. And she's like,
exhausted.
But I'm like, but I'm doing it. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, I think because those guys set that standard, and I look up to them and I'm like, okay, well, it can be done. Like it's possible. I don't have to, I can be tired and exhausted and still perform at a very high level. And I can do what I need to do to get the job done and be precise about it, not just, half-ass it, for lack of a better word. So.
Yeah, you keep saying that. I think it's something that's super powerful. It's so simple, but it's super powerful. Is the standard. And you keep coming back to that. And I think a lot of people look to the companies that operate this way and they're like, well, where does that even come from? And it's a standard, and it's held not just by leadership, but obviously every single person at that company, top to bottom, left to right. And that is commonplace, and it's what's expected. And I'm sure it's clearly articulated, and it's been built up over generations worth of this, those companies being in service.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it's out there, it's refreshing. Like I went toe to toe with a West Coast chief, and he was saying, everybody needs to be on the same playing field. I was making the argument that there are a lot of people that are on a bell curve, and you, as a company officer, a senior firefighter, a command level officer, you need to know who your go-to companies are. And he's like, no, everybody needs to be on the same playing field. You need to be able to count on everybody. I'm like, dude, if you're taking a promotional test, sure, that was a nice answer. That defies logic, that defies humanity. You need to know who the go-to companies are, and you need to know who the people who live and breathe it, and like you said, hold the standard.
I mean,
in that the DC Rescue Squad, the special operations culture in DC, holds that line, and it warms my heart that exists, And
there's companies out there, engine and truck companies out there that are that way.
Oh, 100%, yes.
They are. That there is a standard there, and I won't name which company, but there was a neighboring company that we used to run with a lot, and one day one of the guys had his shield off of his helmet. I'm like, did you lose your shield? And he's like, nah, and didn't want to talk about it. And so I had good friends with another guy at the company, and he's like, we're handling stuff inside. And we're like, okay,
got it.
So he wasn't being the standard, and they're like, you can't wear that, and so is there, we can get into the HR aspect of stuff, and if you in my opinion, I don't I want to be able to wear that blue 2 on my helmet and be a part of that company because I met the standard, not because of some well, I passed all the tests for it, so I'm allowed to do it. You know what I mean? I want to be no, he's a part of this company, And my captain at Squad 2, because we have, in general in DC, you have a company captain, and then you have 3 lieutenants on each, or 1 lieutenant on each shift. So my captain isn't in charge of me every single day, but he is my company commander. And it starts with him. He is that dude is very much this is everyone in that place this is the standard. This is what we expect of you. This is what you need to do. And there's no deviation from that whatsoever. It's not, well, we get that you just had a kid at home. And it's not we'll give you, whatever, or you got this going on. If you need a time off, to take the time off. There's ways to get off of work, and we'll work with you to make sure you're free from that. But when you're here, and this is what we need you to do. And for me, that's always resonated with me, because it's it's team over self. At the end of the day, it's team over self. What can I do to make the team better? Whatever that is my job. If we're on a technical rescue incident and it's a confined space and I'm way bigger than the guys that need to go in there, okay, well, I want to be the best at sending them lines down. I want to be the best at setting equipment up for them. I want to be the best at getting them water when they come up. Whatever that is, I want to do that for them, because I want the team to succeed. And I think that I think that's at the end of the day why our rescue squad and special ops in general is successful, just because a lot of the guys had that same attitude. But
yeah, man. I mean, yeah, I think you feel like you just crushed it. If you found you summed this whole thing up in a really great way. And I could pound on this for hours with you, man. I always love talking with you. And you also have a young daughter at home, so I want to be respectful of of your time and wrap this up. But so many good takeaways from this, not just from the DC Rescue Squad, but early days in the Marine Corps all the way up until now. It's cool to see the evolution, but then just also our just chance meetings in the morning when we're at the gym and just
yeah,
and pounding on life and what each other's doing, man. So always appreciate our our little offhanded conversations. But this has been awesome, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, as we're just wrapping up, anything that I missed that you want to make sure we hit before we close it out?
I can't think of anything, man. Like I told you, I don't. I was telling my wife, she's like, "What does he want to talk to you about?" I was like, "I don't know." So I appreciate you thinking I have a good story, and I hope maybe it motivates people to just kind of change their perspective on a lot of stuff a little bit, and kind of just while you're at work, be at work. While you're at home, be at home. 100% into your family, 100% into your passions, your hobbies, 100% into your profession, and just be a professional in general when you're whatever aspect you're doing. So
yeah, that's personal and professional life.
Yeah.
The formal professional life is you can still be a professional. Yeah, I appreciate that sentiment.